After my wife, Eleanor, passed away 2 years ago, a fog settled over my life. She had been my world, my partner in everything, from raising our son, Andrew, to traveling the world hand in hand. When she died suddenly of a heart attack, it was like someone had taken a knife and sliced my universe in half. I wandered through the days like a man whose anchor had been ripped from the seabed. I clung to photos, replayed old voicemails, and sat alone in the quiet house we once shared. Then one day, Andrew called. He was engaged to a woman named Isabel. He sounded happier than I'd heard him in months. Naturally, I was curious and relieved. He asked if they could come visit me, spend a few months in the family house while looking for their own. I said yes. The day they arrived, my heart skipped a beat. When Isabel stepped out of the car, I froze. She looked just like Eleanor, not entirely, but enough to knock the wind out of me. Her bone structure, her eyes, the slight tilt of her smile. Even her voice had that warm musical tone Eleanor had when she was in her 20s. I tried to brush it off as grief playing tricks on me, but every time she entered a room, I felt that eerie pull. My late wife was gone, wasn't she? Living together only made it worse. She wore Eleanor's favorite color, navy blue. She hummed the same lullaby Eleanor used to sing to Andrew. And one afternoon, I caught her standing in the garden, touching the same rose bush Eleanor used to tend to every morning. I asked Andrew casually where Isabel was from. He said she was born in a small coastal town, raised by a single mother, and didn't like talking much about her past. Her mom died last year, he added. She's still grieving. I nodded, not pressing, but something inside me stirred uneasily. Then came the dreams. I'd see Eleanor in them, young again, radiant, standing by our fireplace, whispering something I couldn't quite hear. When I'd wake up, Isabel would be sitting on the back porch alone, as if waiting for someone. It was unnerving. One evening, I accidentally walked in on Isabel in the study, the very room Eleanor used as her writing space. She was crying, clutching something in her hand. She quickly wiped her tears and smiled at me, saying she was just overwhelmed by a sad chapter in her book. I nodded and left. But later that night, I noticed a drawer slightly open, one that hadn't been touched in years. Inside, Eleanor's old diaries were gone. I told myself I was being paranoid, but the coincidences piled up until they didn't feel like coincidences anymore. One night, I walked past their guest room and overheard Isabel whispering softly. Not to Andrew, he was asleep, but alone. "It's okay," she murmured. "I'm back where I belong." Something broke inside me that night. I couldn't ignore it any longer. I had to know who Isabel really was. The next day, while they were out grocery shopping, I did something I'm not proud of. I went into their room. I wasn't sure what I was looking for. I just knew there was something she was hiding. Inside her suitcase, under a layer of scarves, I found a small leather journal. New, not one of Eleanor's. I hesitated for only a moment before opening it. The first line hit me like a freight train. It feels strange being back in the home I once knew so intimately. Page after page, I read her thoughts, her doubts, her longing, her pain. But Isabel didn't write the entries. Eleanor wrote them. She wrote about losing her memory after the heart attack, waking up in a hospital under a different name, of remembering flashes of her past, of me, of Andrew. How a kind nurse helped her start a new life, but the gaps in her memory remained. She met Andrew by accident, not realizing he was her own son at first. But she felt a deep connection, a maternal pull she couldn't explain. She never told him about the memories. She didn't want to scare him or risk losing him again. So she stayed silent. She tried to let go of the past, of being Eleanor. She embraced her new identity, Isabel. But being back in the house with me changed everything. Memories came flooding back, smells, sounds, emotions, and with it, the fear of being discovered, of hurting Andrew, of destroying the fragile life she'd pieced together. I dropped the journal. My hands were shaking. My wife was alive, but she was engaged to our son. I couldn't breathe. I wanted to confront her, scream, cry, ask her why, how. But then Andrew's laughter echoed from the hallway. They were back. I quickly put everything away, closed the door, and stepped into the kitchen like nothing had happened. That night, I barely slept. I sat on the porch until dawn, watching the horizon. When Isabel came out with her coffee, she sat beside me quietly. After a while, she whispered, "You've been distant lately." I looked at her, really looked at her, and in her eyes, I saw Eleanor. "I found your journal," I said gently. She froze. "I know who you are." Tears welled in her eyes. She opened her mouth, but nothing came out. I reached out and took her hand. "I don't know how this happened. I don't understand it, but you deserve to remember your life, our life." She broke down, sobbing. We talked for hours, about everything, her confusion, her fear, the love she still felt, buried under layers of doubt and trauma. She admitted she didn't know how to tell Andrew. She never intended for any of this to happen. "I thought I was someone new," she said. "But the more I'm here, the more I remember, and the more I realize I'm not." Eventually, we agreed we had to tell Andrew. It was the hardest conversation I've ever had. Watching his face twist from disbelief to horror to pain broke me. He left for several weeks. I don't blame him. Soft background music, hopeful tone. Time passed. Andrew eventually returned. He forgave us, in his own way. He moved out, found a place of his own, needed space. As for Isabel, Eleanor, we're still piecing things together. She's seeing a therapist. We talk every day. It's like learning to love all over again, but this time with the scars laid bare. I don't know what the future holds. I don't even know what to call her, Isabel or Eleanor. But I know this. Grief, memory, and love are not linear. They twist, they fracture, they confuse, but they also rebuild. And in the strangest, most impossible way, I found her again, even if it almost destroyed us. Some truths are buried not to hide, but to heal, and when they resurface, they can either break us or free us.